Okay. Fade this over. All right, cool. I think it's working. Looks like my mic is picking up. That looks good. Let me pause the music and switch the slide over there. So, hello, if you're watching on the stream, thanks for joining me today. I've got a few people here in person and several people on the stream, it looks like. So, hello. I am going to be recording attendance, like keeping track of who's here, both in person and also here online. So if you are watching online, if you don't mind, just say hi in the Discord channel, the streaming channel, and I will record your presence in Canvas. So I'm going to try to do that and introduce the class today at the same time, but we'll see how that goes. My goal today is to talk about the big project in terms of the proposal. So I have a slideshow ready, and I'm basically going to step through the different pieces of the proposal to make sure you know what you need to do and what you need to be getting ready. This is due next week, and so I want to make sure that you are off to a good start with that this weekend, hopefully. So thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm seeing lots of Alex, Becca, Darlene, Olivia, Gracie, Crystal, Katya, Ginger Snaps, Brian, Emily, Ginger Snaps again, and Rachel. So, hi everyone. Okay, so I'm just going to check the boxes for everybody. Okay, cool. So I think that's just about everybody. But if you do join later, or you just join now, then say hi. Oh yeah, hi, Jules. Thanks. Where are you? Oh yeah. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. So like I said, I have this slideshow, and I'm just going to go through it, and then at the end, I'll ask questions. But if you do have something that's relevant to whichever slide or whichever part of it I'm talking about, of course, feel free to jump in with a question. I might not see you immediately on the stream, but I'll do my best to keep an eye on both of those. Might not see you immediately on Discord because I have to minimize that screen on this particular thing I have set up. Oh, hey, Josh. Good to see you. I'll check you off here. Click the box to mark your attendance. Hello. So I have several images in here, by the way. I'll just go ahead and tell you. I just was kind of Googling for images, and for some reason I Googled big project, and this thing came up. And I don't know what it is. Do any of you know what that is? Like, yeah, I was thinking, yeah, maybe. Like, I thought camel at first, but it looks furrier, so I think an alpaca is like a furry camel. I don't know. Ginger Snaps thinks alpaca too. Yeah, maybe. I think of them as fluffier, but maybe that's just, I don't know. So what do these have to do with the project? That's the other thing. I literally did. I just Googled it. Like, because in Google Slides, you can just search for an image within the editor, and it was like one of the top results. So, any theories about what this is? If you have a theory, let me know. But there are other images that you'll see here that came up for similar reasons, that I just Googled a word and then went with one of the top results that, in some cases, that I thought was funny. In some cases, I just went with whatever I thought was appropriate. Okay, so before getting into the slides, this is the assignment page, and just want to make sure you know where this is and what to do with it. It's a pretty lengthy assignment description, and that length here is meant to be helpful in that I'm spelling out, hopefully in pretty good detail, each of the things that you need to account for as you prepare the proposal. It is organized in sections, and I have headings here for these sections and numbers. I recommend that you follow the same format. Although, as you notice, the first item I have is the cover page and table of contents. Normally, you wouldn't number that in this kind of document, so your numbering might start with project narrative as the first item. But you don't technically have to have numbers. But I definitely recommend headings, and I would like for you to put them in this order. This is meant to be pretty restrictive, I guess, in the sense that I want you to be consistent. Consistency will help me read them, but also I think it'll help you prepare them. So that's why it's here. Because if I said just do whatever you want, you might struggle with knowing what to do, and so you might not tell me the things that I want to know about your project. And also, you might not think through them until it's too late. So this is a proposal that is meant for me to have a sense of oversight on your project. So I will vet these a little bit, but also it's meant to encourage you to think through all the different steps and phases of your project in some pretty good detail. So even before you begin, you have this work plan, and then as you work on it, you can follow the plan and then find out if you need to revise your work plan as you go. And that was a great idea, Ginger Snaps. I didn't think to reverse image search it to see where it comes up, but I don't know what that term means. I don't know. Backtrain, is that maybe that's a species? Backtrain camel? Is that a species? Camel? I don't know much about camels, so I don't know. I assume there are different kinds of camels. All right, or a variety, genre of camel. It's a fluffy camel? Yeah. Okay. Great, we're learning about camels today. This is excellent. So anyway, so I hope that the detail here isn't intimidating, except that I do want to intimidate you a little bit into thinking in detailed terms about your project. So there is some of that is intentional. But as you'll see, I hope it's a helpful document to have. One of the big learning goals for this class is planning and executing a large-scale project. And so this is the planning phase. And I have found that this kind of detailed proposal is very helpful. It is modeled, by the way, after grant proposals. So I've worked in a couple of different, as a reviewer for different federal grants. And what you do for those is like you look at a whole bunch of them. And the basic structure and even some of the headings that I've got here is modeled after those kinds of proposals that I've reviewed in that context. I've not ever authored one, but I've reviewed quite a few. So that's the basis for this, the background for it. And in the context of the class, I found it pretty helpful for students to think through it this way. Okay, so a few things to keep in mind. So remember, we're starting with the idea of a problem or a question. And some advice I have about that is find a problem that you care about or a question that you want an answer to, something that actually matters. And that's a big thing. It's kind of hard to tell you how to do that because I don't know what you're interested in or what kinds of things will matter to you. But think of it in terms of what will make a difference in the world. We've looked at a number of things in digital culture that are basically problems in digital culture, like algorithmic bias. So that might be an area to look in if you're not sure what else to start with. But I would say in general, pay attention. Like think about what you notice and what stands out to you and that you think is important. So yeah, that's my advice. Find a problem you care about. Also, yes, Siobhan. Mm-hmm. Okay, sure. So Siobhan's question was, I think, about finding questions or finding problems if you're not sure where to start. Yeah, and so there's the digital projects sample page is kind of that. Like it gives you an idea of the kinds of problems that other digital projects have been about, and you can see that they run the range in terms of. Like some of these are not actually like digital problems, right? Like oil pipeline stuff, but that was something that someone cared about enough to make a project about, and so that might broaden it out a little bit. They don't have to be things like the topic does not have to be something that we've covered already or something related to class. So it can just be something that you can address in a digital way, right? So like as far as the digitalness of it, the digitalness could be in the tool you use at the execution of it. And not necessarily in the problem itself. So yeah, I mean, there's not really a list per se. The other thing you could use as kind of inspiration, like did you look at the project generator thing I shared the other day?
Is it on the live stream chat?
Maybe I don't remember. It probably is somewhere in there. I thought it would come up here as a recent URL for me, so hold on, I have to look at the URL for it. Yeah, it must be in Discord somewhere. Let me see if I have to scroll back a bit to find it. there it is. Yeah, so big project generator.html. So what this does is it uses something called tracery, which is a replacement grammar, which doesn't matter. But what it does is it comes up with project ideas based on an idea, a tool, and an artifact. It just draws a random one from a list. So the things that it sticks together often don't really make sense, but that's kind of the idea. It just kind of lets you brainstorm ideas. Yes, I will. But the idea is like, by looking at a bunch of these, you might see different topics come through it that even though like you aren't really interested in election politics, like you might be interested in making an interactive fiction story, or maybe Adobe Illustrator is not the best way to make a video game, but censorship online, that's a pretty important topic. So that topic will come through right there. And if you really want, like, you can actually view the source code and see the list of all of the problems that it has in its database. So that's another way to see it. But I'll share that link. Just remember that many of the ideas are actually probably bad ideas that it generates. Like the topics are good, the topics are all good, but the idea for what to do about the project often will be bad. And that's kind of the point, because I want you to think about like, what is the best way to address online censorship? And like, what actually could I do? That's the idea. So, oh yeah, nice fluffy camels. Look at that. Here's the project idea generator link again. Just remember that many of those are actually bad ideas for projects, but the topics should all be good. In other words, the tool, the tool would be the bad part. The tool might be might not be the right tool. And no, but the project itself should be digital. So yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, Gracie. Okay, cool. So let me get back to my slides, but it's something this is something you should be thinking about. So in fact, on Monday, I'm going to, like the proposals due Wednesday, but I want you to have your idea pretty well figured out by Monday so we can talk about it. All right, so that's something to shoot for if you don't have an idea yet. Try to get that figured out over the weekend. Ultimately, you are going to be creating an artifact, so I want you to think about the kind of artifact that will really address that problem or question, something that actually will do that in the best possible way. And this is where the project generator, again, is not very helpful because it just picks them randomly. You have to actually be able to decide what is actually the best way to do this. And then that's part of what you're going to convey in the proposal. And then finally, you need to choose a tool or a method, and first of all, it should be the appropriate tool or method for creating that kind of artifact and addressing the problem that you're doing. But also, I really want to encourage you to choose a tool or method that's going to force you to learn something new, like something that you haven't done before or would like to, or you haven't done it much and you'd like to do more of it, you'd like to get better at it. So I really want you to see you challenging yourself to take on something new with this part of the project. All right. So I've covered these three things before, the big three concepts that go into it. Now we are taking a look at the proposal itself. And yeah, I don't know. I just Googled this. I just Googled proposal and this came up. It is Waluigi proposing to Guy Fieri. So I don't know why someone made this image, but now we have it in our slides. Okay, so I'm going to go section by section. So the next several slides are organized based on one of the sections of the assignment that are one of the sections of the proposal as described in the assignment page. So I might flip back and forth between those two a bit. The main thing, I do want you to have a cover page, a table of contents, and use consistent style. And so right away, I want you to notice what this implies. Like if it's got a cover page, it's got multiple pages. Like this is something that will be several pages if you do it right. I don't know how many exactly, but it's probably several. And a table of contents, again, to indicate that it is probably multiple pages and that each of the sections is labeled clearly enough that you can point to what page it's on. That's an important thing. You don't have to make it so each section is an entire page by itself. You can if you want to. I'm not as worried about that. That's certain report styles require that, but like require each section to start on a new page at least. But that's not super important in my opinion. But you definitely need to use section headings. And if you look at the proposal, I've got just use the same section headings I have, right? So talk about the project narrative first, then go into the rationale, the personnel. Just use those. If you need to tweak the phrasing a little bit, that might be okay, but I don't think you should. I mean, I don't think you really will need to. It should be all, they should serve your purposes pretty well, I think. Okay, so that's just a general set of things. Oh yeah, definitely use tables and figures if necessary. Like if you have a need to express something in some kind of data, label it as like a table, label or figure. If you need to have images, label them as figure 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. If you have multiple tables, label them table 1, table 2, etc. So really, we're looking at a formal kind of technical writing, basically, as we prepare this. And yeah, there's a sort of an art to that, but I think if we just follow the proposal structure as described in the assignment, you'll be fine. If you do need to cite things, and you may, then please use MLA style. Not that I feel it's inherently superior, but it's the one I know, and I think it just makes sense to insist on a specific one so that there can be consistency. Okay, so then the next section, and really the first section that you would write, so this might be section 1 for you if you decide to number them. This is the what of your project. So I have a picture of an elevator here. This is like the elevator pitch. So an elevator pitch is kind of the cliche, but the idea is you are, well, like the version of it that we hear in my field is like, let's say you're at the MLA convention, the big convention for our discipline, and you're in the elevator and you realize that the person in the elevator with you is the acquisitions editor for press that you are interested in publishing with. You have 30 seconds to tell them your idea before the elevator gets to the floor you're going to. So how do you pitch your idea in that 30 seconds so that it's clear enough that the person understands it and they're interested in it and you have made a successful connection there? So think of it that way. Think of your project in terms of a 30-second description that conveys the idea and why it is important and like what it is, like what actually are you going to be making, right? Another term for this might be executive summary. So this is not like prose writing or like fiction writing where in your you kind of build up to a surprise ending. This is a report basically. So you want to cover. You don't want there to be any surprises, right? You want to make sure that the project narrative, obviously, it's going to be condensed, but it should point to all of the important things about your project. It should have some indication of that, at least, in that executive summary part of the project narrative. Okay, so the next section is the rationale, and I don't know why I picked a wizard hat for this, I don't remember, but yeah, this is the why of your project. So this is why your project needs to exist, right? So this is something that extends from the narrative, but it's separate because this is focused on a justification for this project's existence. Not just what it is and what it will cover, but why the world needs this, like why this thing needs to be in the world. Okay, and if you can't say why, then maybe you need to think more or think of a different project. Like this is a crucial aspect of your proposal, so make sure that you can express this clearly. Okay, personnel. All right, so is everyone okay so far in terms of, if you have any questions, let me know. I haven't seen any pop up in Discord, so I assume everyone's cool. Is everyone here okay? You doing good? Okay, good. All right. So next up is personnel. So this is who is involved in this project. Now, as I've said, this is by default an individual project. If you choose to work with people, that's okay, possibly, but this is where you have to make that case. This is the part of the proposal that would include any team members that you have. So this is, right, so as you can see, this is who are you, and if you are multiple people, why are you multiple people? So there are two aspects of this. First of all, you need to justify your position in this project, like what background or skills or ideas or interests do you have that justify you as being the person that needs to create this project. So if you back up a bit, these are connected. So it's like, why does the project exist? And then why are you the person that needs to make this project exist? And it could be a personal motivation, or it could be a skill set that you have, or something that you think you can develop. But you need to basically justify your capability here, right? So you're saying that I am the person that can do this, and I need to do this. Okay, so then similarly, if you do decide to make this a group project, or you want to work with people, you need to justify each person's inclusion in this. And if it's a team project, what I'd really like to see is a specific role that each member of the team will play, or a reason that you can't complete this project unless you have Sally on your team to do the video editing or whatever that's going to be. Like, you need to make sure that that's clear. If it is a group project, you just need to create one proposal. So you would be describing the entire team here. But so far, I haven't heard of anyone's necessarily doing that, so I don't know if that's the case. But if you do want to do a group proposal, make sure you justify it here in the personnel section. Okay, so now we get into the actual background of the project. You should be aware of other work in the same area. So whatever problem or topic you choose, and if you go through these, certainly censorship online, right? That's something that there are projects about that. So this is the part where you need to do a little research, find out what's already out there, and describe in an overview what else has already been done about this. This is where you want to do a little bit of, you want to be thorough. You want to actually, I can probably find things myself, so I want to see you do that too. I want to see what you have found. But at the same time, you also want to be able to say that these projects are pretty good, but I think I could do better, or I think I could add something new to this conversation. So you want to make sure that you have that, that moment in this section where you remind your reader that you are still the person who needs to do this, that this project still needs to exist even though these other projects may already exist. All right, so does that make sense? Is that good? Okay. So this is kind of like a literature review in a research project. And I do expect you to see something here because we've seen a lot in the sample projects, right? Like over here, there's quite a few things here. So if you're doing anything about machine bias and algorithms, then the ProPublica project is certainly an example of a prior project, or the Algorithmic Justice League. Like, these are examples of projects that already exist about that topic. So if you think you have something new to add, then make sure you tell me what that is, or why your thing is better or a good thing to exist, even though those other things exist. And so this should be as specific as possible. So make sure that you include links and citations as needed to these. Okay, so audience and dissemination plan. So this is something that should have an impact, right? This is an idea where you're creating this project to solve a problem in the world or answer a question that really exists. So you should think about who the audience is and how you plan on reaching them. So you should describe that audience. It might be just a general idea of who the audience is. It could be like UMW students. I think that would have very different considerations than if it's just a public, like whoever on the internet. If it's people that you're trying to reach through social media, you can actually target that pretty specifically if you plan out your campaign. And I want to see at least some speculation here about how you plan to do that. Like, it can be a little bit, what's the word? Ambitious. Like, you can describe things optimistically in terms of how you plan to find an audience. But I want to see you thinking as concretely as possible about who's going to view this and why. How are they going to know to view it? Like, you can put something on YouTube, but getting people to actually watch your YouTube video takes more work than that. Like, if you just put it on YouTube, it may not ever get any views. But if you put it on YouTube and share it on Facebook, put it on Twitter, have a link on a QR code around campus, like, there's all kinds of other things you can do to try to get people to access your YouTube video. So I want to see you thinking about that if you can. Okay, cool, right on. So accessibility. So given that you want your work to reach an audience and you want it to reach as many people as possible, different media have specific considerations for accessibility, for making sure as many people as possible can access that content. And there is a textbook that I can share with you. It's really a handbook. Like, it's not really something you would read beginning to end. But it is available here. It's accessforall.pressbooks.com. Hold on. Brian had a question. I will share it there. Yes, Brian had a question about this, and I think he wanted to know if this presentation was going to be shared, and I will put it there later. Cool. But this book here is, it was produced by the Office of Disability Resources, and it's a practical guide to all kinds of different, for making all kinds of things accessible. So the idea is, like, there's some background, like how do you do this, but there's also consideration, right? So if you're going to be making any kind of video content, I would expect you to read this section of this textbook and learn about how to do captions. It is something that can be done relatively automatically, but still requires some supervision, and it's something you should definitely plan for in your work process. That if you do, let's say you do a video, after you put it up on YouTube, if you choose YouTube as your platform, it will automatically generate captions, but they will still require cleanup. Like, they're pretty good, but you need to go through and make sure that things are spelled correctly and that it actually has your words in them. You can also hard code or like just put the captions directly in your video if you want to. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that I would expect to see for video. For other kinds of content, right? So even, if you're building anything on the web, right, then it needs to comply with Section 508 of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I mean, this is, like, I'm asking you to do this, but this is actually legally required. Like, this is something that is, like, occasionally enforced. This is something that, as a public university, as a person making something at the behest of a public university, you are legally bound, like, you are legally required to follow Section 508. That said, it is difficult sometimes, and there's not really any enforcement of it, but it is still something, it is still an expectation that you should plan for, right? So that means not just like making sure your website works, but making sure it's accessible for anyone who views it. And that's something that does take some planning and some knowledge, and that's what this textbook is about. So yeah, and if you're considering any kind of web project, that's what you should check out, all right? So yeah, so as an example here, this video should have a complete and accurate transcript. On the web, it has to do with things like labels on different elements and like color schemes that are going to work for people with different kinds of color vision. And so, yeah, there's things like that. It's pretty practical, and it's not actually that hard. Okay, next, you should have a sustainability plan. So if you can think ahead, like a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, will your project still exist? If so, what do you need to do now to make sure that it will exist in 10 years and make sense in 10 years? That's something that you should also think about. If you put it on YouTube, YouTube will probably still be here in 10 years. Your domain might not be, so YouTube in some ways might be a more stable platform than hosting it on your domain, unless you plan on keeping your domain. And if that's the case, then that would be an option, right? But I want you to think about it. It is also valid, it is also reasonable that your project might be designed from the outset with no future plans. Like, you might design it to be temporary, and that is also okay. But I want you to be intentional about it right here. What I don't want to see is that your project will like dissolve and just sort of crumble, and like I'll try to find it one day to show to a student in the future, and then I just can't find it because your domain has disappeared. That happens all the time. Like that has happened over and over again. I'm working to make a preservational, like a site for preserving digital projects produced for this class, and so I have a bunch of them from prior, from previous classes. It's not, well, I guess I could show it to you. It's not done, but I can show you kind of the idea that I'm working on. Our library also has a system for archiving and preserving student projects. But again, so this is work in progress, placeholder content. I'm giving you this as a caveat to this website that isn't even loading at the moment, so that's not great. There it goes. Okay, so I'm working on this as basically a new version of DGST101.net that I've been working on for like 8 months now, just a tiny bit at a time. But what you're seeing here, these are DGST 395 projects from last year. And I mean, they're some are great, some are okay. That's just how it goes. But I will prepare an option like similar to this for you all if you want to preserve your project that way. It'll be opt-in, like I'm not going to do this automatically. But yeah, this also might be kind of inspirational if you're just trying to think of what kinds of things you could do. I mean, honestly, this is like the everything archive. So what I want to do is kind of curate some of these to make it more like recommendations, like do things like this and maybe not do things like this, right? I want to be able to emphasize some that I think are really great examples. And some of these are really good. Some of them are just okay, and that's fine too. Yeah, so if you're interested in games, there are a couple of games here that hopefully, I don't know if we can still play this one. I don't remember if there's a playable version or not. I know Bianca had a hard time getting the playable version to keep working. Like she had to keep tweaking it. Like it's something that was kind of fragile. Like it had some problems working sometimes, but it did work at least once. I played it, and that's fine. Anyway, there's a lot of good stuff here. But this is the kind of archive that I will put your projects in eventually, and maybe eventually I will make this easy to navigate and find and curate. I'm just kind of seeing if there's any that are, yeah, so this is an example of a video project. So, right, so it's on YouTube, but here's a way that now we can find it. This is a huge project. Or let's see, what's another one that's a quick one? Oh yeah, this one was really good. I hope it's still available. Yeah, so this was an example where like the basic project was a web page, but there's a lot of content here. So it's how to do book repair. And so what Kendall did here is like this is really detailed. This is much more detailed and informative than like a WikiHow. And she started in her prior work, she looked at like WikiHows and Instructables and was like, these are okay, but I could do much better. And so what she did was she has actual pictures of all the tools and supplies you need as opposed to like weird clip art. And you can see it, here. She also has, step-by-step instructions and animated GIFs when it's important to show a process, like something moving. So this is a really thorough, really good project overall. Yeah. Right. Anyway, so that's sustainable because it's on UMW blogs, and we're going to try to keep that running as long as we can. Okay, was there a question? Yeah. So Samantha had a question. I think Twine is probably okay. I mean, sustainability. Really, the question is where do you host your Twine game? So if you make a game with Twine, right? Like Twine, you generate it. When you publish it, it generates a standalone file that does not depend on the underlying software anymore. So as long as HTML and JavaScript continue working, then your Twine game should continue to work, right? So that is not guaranteed, I guess, but I think 10 years, yeah, I think in the 10-year horizon, I think HTML and CSS will continue to be pretty standard on the web. So I think Twine is sustainable as a platform, but you will need to figure out where to host that. So if you host it on your domain, that's great. A lot of people have been using itch.io for hosting Twine games recently, so you have to kind of look at that platform and decide how reliable it is. I think it's widely used, so it hopefully will stick around, but like GeoCities was widely used and it got deleted, so that's kind of not guaranteed. Anyway, I just want you to think about it and have an idea. All right, so the next section is risks, and there are two ways to think about risks and you should address both of them in this section. First of all, talk about specific challenges your project will face. I think the one challenge that everyone has that is automatic is just like running out of time, like just other things cropping up and taking your attention away from this project, and then you just run out of time, you don't do it. So that's not the kind of thing I'm looking for. I'm more looking at like if you are trying to recruit participants, maybe you can't find anyone. That would be a significant challenge. If you plan on learning a new software package, but like you just can't learn it, or you can't figure it out despite your best effort, that would be a kind of challenge to list here. Or if you need access to specific equipment, that could also be a challenge if it's something that, if you can't get access to that, then that would be a definite obstacle. So list anything like that might come up that you perceive as a potential obstacle to your project. And then next, and this one should be also, it is important, but usually it's not an issue, but is there any risk of harm that could be caused by your project to you or the public or participants in your project, anything like that? There are different kinds of harm. Physical safety, of course, is a consideration, but also think about like emotional safety, and if you are making a video, for example, who's the audience for that? Who's included in your video? What is your narrative? Certain things might cross an ethical line in terms of video content, and so that's something that hopefully you might think of. Let me just a couple of caveats about that to kind of give you a sense of what I'm talking about. If you want to do a video about cyberbullying, don't do cyberbullying in your video, right? Don't do it on someone and see what happens. That was a proposal a while ago, and that was one I rejected. That's the only kind of thing that I would ever really say no to, is something that I think might be harmful to someone. So don't do cyberbullying. Don't try to like get revenge on a cyberbully, that kind of thing. Just don't mess with that. Like if you want to talk about cyberbullying, that's great, but I think you need to make sure that you're not like accidentally doing it. So that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking of in terms of risks here. But yeah, it's rarely an issue, but it's something that has come up before. So that's why there's a section in the proposal here. So, and really every section in this proposal kind of has a history like that. There was a specific situation where I needed to know something about a project. So that's why I'm asking for all these things ahead of time now. Okay, so this next section is very important and really the one that you might spend the most time on in the proposal. Maybe, it depends on how you approach it, but this is where you're going to tell me what you need in order to be successful. So it's kind of like the opposite of the challenges one. So these are the things that you need. And the main thing that you need, the main resource that you have is your time. And so that's part of what I am interested in here. But also, if you need any specific equipment or software, list it here, right? Even if it's something you already have, list that you have this software and that's why you're ready to start working on it. Like if it's Photoshop and you definitely need Photoshop, then list that here among your software needs. Or if you need to get access to Photoshop, you need Photoshop but you don't have it, you can list it here and then I can help you find a way to access it if you need Photoshop specifically. I mean, really, I would probably encourage you to find a free alternative. But if you need something specific, then this will be a way to indicate that, and hopefully I can help you find something, either a way to access the thing you need or something like it. Okay, and then the other thing, like I said, you have time. That is your most important resource. And so what I'm interested in here is a sense of how long you think this will take. So I think this is hard to predict in some cases, but this is where you say, for example, that you are, I keep coming back to video, but let's say you're doing a video, then you should tell me like how much time will you need for shooting, how much time do you plan for editing, and I have found that most people underestimate how long that takes. Like so, just the shooting. Let's say you plan to make a 10-minute documentary, right? That might take you several days of work, right? Of straight out, like 60 to 100 hours. Like that could be a lot of work. Depends on how you do it and what your content is, but I find just for the simple like explanation videos that I make, like a 10-minute video might take me 2 or 3 hours to shoot all of the different parts of it and edit it. Editing it will take like another 6 to 8 hours in terms of like how I do it, and maybe it's because I'm a perfectionist on it or whatever, but it takes me a really long time. So I would expect that you might find that as well. So just plan ahead. And also, I am going to ask you to keep a time log. So it's basically a spreadsheet of how much time you spend on it. And I have an example here linked in the assignment. So I'll pull that up. So this is literally, as it says, like here's, I'll update the date on that, but it's just, here's the date that I worked on this. I started here, ended there. So just do the math on that. So the idea is that by the end, you can add up your total time from that column, and that gives me a sense of how long you spent on it. I would say that in general, you should plan for this at least 30 hours in terms of the overall work, basically after the proposal and before the end of the semester. So that's something you could spread out different ways. You might find different things take longer than you expect or shorter, but I want you to start thinking about that now in terms of your project. Okay. So, an example of a kind of thing you might also budget for is in your resources section, if you know that you will need to learn a specific tool, like how long do you think it'll take you to learn that? You might be able to find a specific set of tutorials online that will actually tell you this should take 15 hours or something like that. So that's the kind of thing that you would be able to budget for. Okay, do you any questions about this? This one can trip people up sometimes. So how do you all feel? Does that make sense? I'm looking around you all here. Sound okay? Online, everyone okay? Yeah, and Samantha, if you're looking at the proposal is due Wednesday. Next Wednesday. So that's the 21st. So Samantha, the question about the game I don't know if you're looking at Rhiannon's game, the college simulator, but she did that in RPG Maker, which is a pretty good tool for making RPGs if that's what you want to do. So, yep, okay, cool. So you should also include a schedule, and that's going to include specific goals, checkpoints for when you plan to be done, and yeah. That one's pretty intuitive. I think just kind of the parts of the process that will be done at specific dates. That should make sense. And then I think this is the last section, right? Yeah, this is the last section, finally. So I can say, finally, you need to tell me how you will know whether or not you're successful. So this is successful in two senses. In terms of achieving the goals of the project, like reaching the audience, making a difference, answering the question, that's one sense of success. The other one is a sense of a grade. And I am asking you if this is optional, but if you would like to go ahead and give me a grading rubric, I will use that grading rubric to determine your grade for this project. And it's such a big part of the grade for this class. This is essentially going to determine your grade for the class. I have found that when students give themselves grading rubrics, often I would consider themselves, they are too strict on themselves or too harsh on themselves. So if you do give me a grading rubric, I will likely, that would be a conversation. Like I would use that as a starting point and then kind of talk through it. But something that I value much more highly than students often do is the process, even if that process fails to produce the project that you've set out to complete here. So your grade for this class and for this project really is not how awesome is your project. It's what do you learn along the way. That's the value. So your rubric should be oriented around that if you choose to write a rubric. If you don't want to write a rubric, that's fine. I can do it too. But it should emphasize process and not product. Okay, so if you are trying to learn how to make video games to make this project, like you want to do game stuff, you never made a game before, but you want to try it for this project, that's great. But your game might not be the most amazing game in the world, and that's okay because now you've learned how to make a game. There's an aphorism among game designers that your first 10 games are going to be terrible, so go ahead and get them done. Like go ahead and get it over with. So that's okay, right? Like that's something that I also embrace, like that idea of do something while you can do it, right? And this project can be an excuse to try something that you've always wanted to try but never really had that opportunity to. So let's see. Yeah, so Smith was looking at RPG Maker, and it can be hard. I know that like Rhiannon, the student who did that, she had done that. She had used it a little bit before, and so she was trying to make a bigger game than she could ever attempted before, and she ran into issues with it. Like I remember we had to do some problem solving on it. One time she accidentally deleted her game, so she had to recover it from her trash and rebuild it and stuff. But yeah, it is hard. You can learn a lot on YouTube. I'll just say that. Like anything that seems complicated, somebody has probably made a YouTube tutorial about how to do it. Might not be the world's greatest tutorial, but it'll help, and that's often been helpful for me when I'm learning something complicated. Like working on cars, like I don't know, I don't have a lot of experience with that, but I can do a lot, and I have done a lot just by watching a YouTube video and like applying what I learned there to fixing my car. I replaced my brake rotors. That was a pretty involved process. Okay, so some frequently asked questions. Well, I don't actually have many in here, as you can see. I just have the one, but a few others have come up. So, and I'd like to add some more if you have more. So, but this is one that is frequently asked. How long should it be? And I'm not going to give you a set minimum or maximum length on this proposal. It just needs to be long enough. And what I mean by that is each of those sections has specific things that you're trying to accomplish in that section. So you should make sure that you write enough or add enough content there to fully do that in that section. So that's all I can say about that. Okay, so let me just kind of go into this slide in case there are other questions. So, questions. What are your questions at this point? And a few on, yeah, and this is to anyone watching online too. If you have any questions, this would be a good time to ask. I can add them to the slide, but I can also try to answer them here. Well, I'll add the one that Gracie asked. Is this new? Let's say, first. Okay. Copy the link here. Generator. Okay, cool. Let's see. Great. So, questions? What are you thinking, Sally? Any questions?
Do you have a specific, like, format you want the table of contents in? Or just like as a list?
A list with page numbers. Yeah. So like, because if you get, even beyond 3, 4, 5 pages, it's helpful to know which page to find something on. And if you want to get really fancy, like you can do it in Google Docs. I think you can do it in Google Docs where like each listing in the table of contents is a link to that section later on in the document. I mean, that's kind of fancy, but if you don't have to, but if you want to do it that way, that's okay. I think there probably is a Google Docs template for like a report or something that would have that kind of thing already built in it, but I don't know. Yeah, so just like section name and page number is all I need for that.
And then also, if your research consists of photos, would you rather the photos are linked in or like an actual?
You mean in the prior section or?
Yeah, like in the prior research.
Um,
Looking at like mapping stuff.
Yeah.
You want it just like linked to the photos so that it takes you to it when you click it, or like if you just put the image in the document.
I would say it depends on how many. So if it's like 1 or 2, I would say embed them. But if it's more than that, then links are probably better. It's just so it doesn't like crowd up your document too much. I mean, I want to read your content, not see a bunch of images by someone else, but I want to know that they're there. So linking would be probably better if it's a lot of them. Yeah. So kind of a judgment call, but yeah. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. All right. DJ, any questions? Mm-hmm.
If we find more sources, where do we add that? Like if you realize you missed something while you're working on a project, you decided to do more research, where do you put the extra resources?
So it's a good question. So for the stream, DJ had a question like if you in working on the proposal, you later realize that there are other resources to add in terms of prior art. So there are going to be 3 opportunities for progress reports where I'm going to ask for like how's it going kind of report, and so you can put that there if that's been helpful to you. Also, I'm going to be asking you to teach some of your peers about what you've been learning as you produce the project, so they could go into that. But they don't really need to go. You don't need to revise the proposal really, because the proposal should be complete and should work on its own. But if it's helpful, like if you do find something or you keep researching, that's great because that's just going to improve your project, right? But yeah, as far as there's no like turning in for it. And this is another option. Like I'll just put it out there as an option. I think it is helpful to have like a log or like a journal of like how things are going. And I'm not going to require it just because the structure gets, I don't know, it's just too much overhead. But you have a website, you have a blog on that website possibly. That could be a place where you have like you have like progress reports of your own, just saying like here's what I figured out today, here's something cool I found, just to kind of continually keep that research going and document your progress. Like I find it useful, like when I'm learning a new, like when I was learning Python, I did like a daily like what I learned today kind of journal to help remind myself what I was learning, and by like I read it, but then like by typing my own version of it, that helped me learn it a lot better. So you might find that helpful if that's the kind of thing you're doing too. That's a suggestion. Yeah. Okay. Siobhan, any questions? Okay. So online folks, any questions? If not, I guess, I have a notification. What is that? So, yes. Let me over here. Okay, so Gracie, I just saw your DM, so I will follow up with you shortly. So, okay, cool. So I think actually, oh yeah, we are out of time, so I should wrap up the stream. So yeah, I'll share the slides. Well, I'll put it here in this chat for now. I think I can just do. Let me start it over. Okay. Yeah, so I'll just put the slides in Discord for now. And then I'll put it in Canvas later too. Okay, great. So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to wrap up the stream. Thanks for watching. As always, if you have questions, please let me know. Or if you have an idea, you're not sure if it makes sense or if it would work, please run it by me. I would love to give you some feedback on your idea. So what we're going to be doing on Monday, I want to tell you about that too. You remember the idea of an elevator pitch? I want you to have your idea figured out well enough that you could actually do an elevator pitch of it by Monday. So you don't have to have it written, but you should know it well enough that you could describe it on Monday, because I'm going to figure out some way to do that interactively, hopefully, on Monday. So stay tuned. I'll send you some instructions once I figure out how to do that. Okay, so that's it. I'll wrap up the stream. Have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday.